Let's think about risk-based thinking. It continues to be a top-of-the-mind concern for industry, and it goes well beyond quality management systems. In fact, it can be argued that the appropriate management of risk goes to the heart of a business operating system, and that, of course, requires appropriate planning. Clause 6.0 of ISO 9001:2015 covers this topic, and the specific subclauses detail actions to address risk and opportunities, quality objectives and the planning to achieve them, and planning of changes. Really important stuff. Chad Kymal, Chief Technology Officer of Omnex, wrote a great, insightful article around these themes titled Risk-Based Thinking in Planning Using the Business Operating System Approach. It's currently running on the Quality Digest website. Chad and QD Editor-in-Chief Director Sharma are going to be presenting a webinar on this very topic on Tuesday, June 20th. So, to give us a bit more perspective on this and a sneak peek at next week's webinar, I'm pleased to welcome Chad Kymal to the show via Skype. Chad, welcome back to Quality Digest Live.
Hey, Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you today?
Excellent.
Thank you for joining us here from Texas. I believe you're in Texas today.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, great. Well, perhaps you can start by walking us through the progression from, you mentioned this in your article, the progression from Ford's quality operating system, which you worked on in the 1990s, to the Omnex business operating system of today.
You know, Dirk, Mike, you know, what's real interesting is how, you know, what foresight we had in the 1990s when we put this model together. And you can see this model as figure 1 in my paper with the so what we didn't have from this model is we had mission, vision, policies, drive goals and objectives, and we had customer expectations driving goals and objectives. For the longest time, you know, we were talking about customer-focused objectives and customer-focused KPIs. And very interesting, when we did, you know, we looked at the customers, we said everybody external to the organization. So we took top management, we took corporate, we also took, you know, the government regulatory agencies. What we did not take are things like suppliers. We didn't take, you know, the employees of the organization. So with interested party expectations, these are the expectations, these are the categories that we have added. The second thing we've added also, of course, you know, we did look at critical success factors. You might say, well, critical success factors are sort of like context, but context is its own being, and it's something that's come in actually into strategy in the last 10 years. If you look at, you know, papers written by Harvard Business Review and so on. So context is new, expansion beyond customers and government is new, and then of course, when we set goals and objectives, you set KPIs based on those goals and objectives, and you balanced it out and supported meeting these KPIs through key processes. I mean, really, imagining in the 1990s, we were talking about process focus and process measures. So that's why it's been easy implementing standards like ISO 9001:2000 when it first came out in 2000. Of course, the other big addition in, you know, ISO 9001:2015 and things like IATF 16949 2016 and AS 9100 is the idea of, you know, risks and opportunity analysis in the risk-based analysis.
Well,
risk-based thinking.
Let me.
So that's also new.
Well,
go ahead.
Let me ask you about that, because that kind of actually feeds into where I wanted to go. I wanted to ask you, when you consider risk and planning change, well, do those kind of work when you get beyond quality as a silo and begin to consider maybe the broader needs of the business?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Mike, when Omnex implemented these, and also from the Ford QOS, it was not really quality oriented. It was business oriented. In fact, you know, we had discussions with Ford trying to even call it a business operating system back then. So, you know, especially today, with the idea of quality being meeting the needs and expectations of interested parties, and, you know, being about customer satisfaction, quality cannot be about product conformance. So quality now is a very broad term. And then with the idea of the high level structure, so we have the, ISO 9001 2015, we have the ISO 14001 2015, we have the soon to be ISO 45000 with health and safety, all high level structure based, including ISO 27000 and IT. So suddenly the context, interested party expectations, and the goals and objectives are broad. They're organizational based, and the KPI is about the entire organization. And like your lead-in story about social responsibility and sustainability, we believe that should also be incorporated. And I'll just say one more thing. With IATF 16949 having, corporate responsibility in there, this is a perfect opportunity to really put a business operating system in that's really about the business.
So how do these standards, specifically ISO 9001 2015, how do they address the need to plan, to set goals, to achieve goals? That's a really important one, to achieve the goals you set, and also to manage risk at the same time.
In fact, we used to say the BOS is all about making it happen. So, it's not a quality responsibility, it's really a business responsibility. So really, what we would do, and what we do is we make it a cross-functional top management responsibility, and we have champions who own the KPIs. And it's actually cross-functional. Those are results. Like, parts per million rejects, delivery on time, cost, customer satisfaction. These are all results of the organization, and you achieve those by identifying key processes and the process measures. But Mike, I don't know if I answered your question. But the bottom line is about achieving things, and top management will be really, really happy that the risk-based thinking is to help achieve the objectives top management sets.
Now, I think you did address my question, but there's a follow-up actually that I think we'll get into a little bit deeper, because in the article you mentioned a very specific 7-step process to implement the business operating system. So can you maybe run through those steps quickly for us and give us some perspective about the importance of each step?
This business operating system, its version originally at QoS, was a very, very important process. We trained all the Fortune 500 companies back in the 1990s were automotive related. When I say automotive related, it's steel, it's plastics, the automotive industry hits everybody. We also did the entire service supply side of Ford. So there was a service QoS we trained. And it's a 7-step process, and you need to step through this every year. And you have to step through this, as you set your budget and as you come up with your projects for improvement. All right, let me go through this fast. First is, of course, identifying the context and the interested parties. Step number 1. Take a look at what has changed in the business, what's really important to the business. Step 2, align policy, mission, vision, values with the context. Because, as we go into companies, we talk about alignment chart, which I'll mention later. People are misaligned. The quality policy, the values, the mission, vision, all have to be aligned with the context of the organization. Step 3 is very key. How do you identify interested party expectations? We actually identify it, we list it, group it, and rate it. And the rating, by the way, is based on the interested party's impact to the business. So this is why I think, because we have implemented hundreds of these operating systems, in the end of the day, in terms of the worker expectations and the supplier expectations, we have to look and see what is the impact to the business, because in the end of the day, we have only time to really focus on those expectations that immediately impacts our business in terms of dollar or loss of sales. Step 4, taking these needs and expectations, we group them into categories, And we have something usually about something like 12 categories. Things like delivery, product quality, financial stability, environmental, and we set strategic objectives around what's really important to the important expectations of our interested parties. Then we identify the KPIs around these strategic objectives. If we stop there, so folks, one thing I want to tell everyone, everybody's setting KPIs, and these KPIs have no basis. So how do you make sure they have basis? You make sure they align with interested party expectations and the context of the organization. Not only is it a great idea, it's a requirement today. But if you stop there, it's not enough. You have to identify the key processes that drive the result. So the KPIs are the result that top management cares about. And if you go back to ISO 9001 or 14001 or 45001, there's the 4.4F, identifying the processes that impact planning. Folks, that's what you're doing with this model when you identify processes and the process measures that impact the KPIs. And then, Mike, I'll go a little faster here. We conduct the risk-based thinking and we identify the projects to work on to close the gap. So we talk about each KPI having the where we are and a goal. And that's the gap between where we are and the goal. And that's what we do with the improvement projects, is we close the gap. And that typically is through cross-functional teams and project teams working under the champion of the organization, who's part of a cross-functional top management team. These are all the things we try to sort of implement as a part of the business operating system. I could go on.
No, that's because I want to keep our powder dry, because as I mentioned in the intro, we're doing a webinar together with you next week titled Risk-Based Thinking and Planning Using the Business Operating System Approach, and that's going to happen on Tuesday, June 20th. You can see it right there, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. It's going to be hosted by Dirk Ducharme, as usual, and Chad, you're going to present it. You can register via link in Chad's article below the video player screen, or just keep an eye on your email inbox for further details.
Couple of things for the audience. Come after reading the paper.
Right.
Because what we're going to do is show you an implementation and show you in a step-by-step manner where you might actually forget some of the key, sort of little things I'm talking about in terms of what it's all about. All right. So see you all next week, and thank you very much, Mike. Thank you, everyone.
Chad, thank you as always for a lot of information. And again, if all of you out there listening appreciate that, check out the webinar. You're going to get a lot of great information from Chad. He always gives a great presentation. So Chad, thanks again for joining us. We'll see you on Tuesday.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.